A Love Romance Movie Guide. Chapter 1. Raised on Love Movies. We all watched tons of love movies. The Thornbirds was probably the greatest love story of all time as far as the mainstream viewing audience is concerned. There are no other great love stories in the mass mainstream consciousness. Dr. Zhivago goes back to 1965. I never thought Gone with the Wind was a love movie. It was a movie about a manipulative bitch. There are no great love movies being made nowadays, at least not to me. Nowadays, we've got a romance channel affiliated with the American Classical Movie Network which showcases love movies from all eras. Encore's Love Network is another love movie network. Everybody loves a truly good love story. Everybody harps over 9.5 Weeks, 1986, as an erotic thriller, but I found it plotting and boring. They did a short scene with ice cubes and all of a sudden, it was all hyped up. If you want sex, watch a porno. There are over 10,000 made every year. When I watch a movie for the love story, I want to see a great story of passion, commitment, surrender, great sacrifice, great love or something like that, not just sex or sleaze. If you want some other erotica movies, try Last Tango in Paris, 1972, Wild Orchid, 1990, or Zandali, 1990. If you and your beau are serious movie buffs, invest $20 in one of those movie directory books at the bookstore that doesn't just list movies by year and alphabetical order but that classifies them into different categories like romantic comedy, heavy romance, western, sci-fi romance, action, etc. I've found many free old and new movies at moviebb.net, ok.ru, putlockrhd.io. The best TV channels for true movie buffs are AMC, American Movie Classics, AMC Romance Channel and TNT, Ted Turner's Movie Classics Channel. In my opinion, movies from the old days, which means more than 20 years ago, were thicker on story and good dialogue than they are these days. Movie review books are at number 778 and hashtag 791-792 at the library. Beyond the many movie review books out there, there are databases and CD-ROMs like Variety Video Directory Plus and Complete Video Directory. A strange movie I saw was a 1950s one called A Portrait of Jenny with Jennifer Jones about a love affair between a live guy and the spirit of a deceased woman. The music is real intense and spooky. I always thought A Midsummer Night's Sex comedy by Woody Allen in 1982 was pretty good, so was his other parody Annie Hall. I think a pretty good love movie is a Swedish movie from 1999 called Under Solen. It's in Swedish with English subtitles. A lonely middle-aged, overweight farmer puts an ad in the newspaper for a housekeeper. A beautiful, younger woman comes to live in to do his housework, but both obviously have needs higher than this. The excellent part of the movie was the subtleties they go through in the process from strangers to intimacy. Olaf was always respectful to her and she responded by being increasingly more friendly and open with him. You would never see this in an American movie. They're so much more superficial and fast-moving. There was also the contrast between Olaf and his younger, loud-mouthed, supposed world-wise, flashy friend who turned to be a louse at the end, stealing Olaf's money. It was a metaphor of what men are like. The seemingly boring ones are the monogamous, respectful ones who know how to truly love one woman only. The players are the superficial ones with phony charm who'll say anything to get sex from a girl without commitment. The younger guy was jealous of the relationship between Olaf and Ellen. He knew he couldn't get that deep with anyone. I thought it was a great movie, the way it played all these relationships with each other so perfectly. The younger friend even tells his younger girlfriend he loves her in order to have sex with her. She gives her virginity to him, after which he says she has to go home right now even though she wants to sit there and be romantic. The movie shows us what women really want from a man. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how cute and flashy you are. The woman wants the emotional depth, commitment, and trust from a man. They might dream of swashbucklers, but in the real world there are very few dashing types with the emotional depth to be with one woman and please her. These are a few good romantic movies, all the way from romantic comedies to tear-jerkers. If you have any favorites, send me the title and the year of release and I will put in the list for the next edition. Either go to a movie website or a movie directory to check these movies out to see if you might be interested in them. According to the American Film Institute, Katharine Hepburn is the best all-around performer in movies, spanning romantic, dramatic and comedic roles. The book Profoundly Erotic, Sexy Movies That Changed History by Joe Bob Briggs is a collection of essays on sex in film. Love movie quotes/movie love quotes. lovesayings/movie_love_quotes.php. soundoflife.net/movie-love-quotes. Romantic movie websites/love movie websites. romancistuc.com/romantic-movies.htm. imdb.com/section/genres/romance. ifc.com/film/film-news/2007/07/the-greatest-sex-scenes-in-5.5. The 50 greatest sex scenes in cinema. IAFD.com is the Internet adult film database which contains some erotic and love films along with porn. SomethingWeird.com. eroticfilmguide.com. onestopdating.com/movies.htm. afionline.org, American Film Institute. amctv.com, American Movie Classics. bellaonline.com/site/romance movies. celebratelove.com/romanticmovies.htm. filmsite.org/romancefilms.html. romanceclassics.com. romcom.shiny-star.net, romantic comedies. theromancereader.com/movie.html. theromantic.com/romanticmovies.htm. true.com/magazine/pop_romantic_movies.htm. Watch tons of free love movies at pootlocker.fyi, fmovies.org, and streamm4u.com. Type in love or love story. Find love movies at tasteofcinema.com. Woody Allen made a lot of relationship movies. Try tasteofcinema.com/20178-Woody-Allen-movies-ranked-from-worst-to-best. Chapter 2. Several lists of love movies. List of romantic love movies in alphabetical order. You can find all kinds of movie lists at imdb.com/list. A Walk to Remember. Ghost, with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. Harold and Maude. It Happened One Night, with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. Love Affair, with Warren Beatty and Annette Bening. Love Story, with Ryan O'Neal and Ali MacGraw. Message in a Bottle. Roman Holiday, with Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn. Say Anything with John Cusack. Sleepless in Seattle, with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. South Pacific. Summertime with Katharine Hepburn. The Graduate, with Dustin Hoffman. The Lucky One. The Notebook. When Harry Met Sally, with Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal. 40 Days and 40 Nights. 50 First Dates. 9.5 Weeks. A Place in the Sun. A Touch of Class. A Walk to Remember. A Kind of Loving. A New Leaf. A Star is Born. A Walk in the Clouds. A Woman Rebels, 1936. About a Boy. Adam's Rib. Aladdin. Algiers. Alice Adams, 1935. All Night Long. Along Came Polly. America's Sweethearts. American Pie, Trilogy. An American in Paris, 1951. An Affair to Remember. Angel Eyes. Anna Karenina. Anna Karenina. Annie Hall. April in Paris, 1952. Arthur. As Good as It Gets. Audrey Hepburn. Barefoot in the Park. Basic Instinct. Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast, 1991. Best Friends. Betsy's Wedding. Blind Date. Bloom in Love. Body Heat. Bombshell, 1933. Braveheart. Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Bridget Jones, The Edge of Reason. Bridget Jones's Diary. Bringing Up Baby. Bull Durham. Bundle of Joy, 1956. Bus Stop, 1956. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Cactus Flower. Camelot. Camille. Can't Hardly Wait. Carefree, 1938. Carlito's Way. Casablanca. Chapter 2. Christopher Strong, 1933. Circle of Friends. City of Angels. City Lights. Cleopatra, Taylor and Burton. Color of Night. Coming Home. Continental Divide. Crimes of Passion. Crocodile Dundee. Cross My Heart. Dance with Me. Dances with Wolves. Dark Victory. Debbie Reynolds. Dirty Dancing. Dr. Zhivago. Don Juan DeMarco. Doris Day. Double Indemnity. Down to Earth. Empire Records. Ever After. Father of the Bride. Fever Pitch. Fire Over England, Lee and Olivier. Flashdance. Flying Down to Rio, Astaire and Rogers. Follow the Fleet, 1936. Forces of Nature. Forget Paris. 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Frankie and Johnny. Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. French Kiss. From Here to Eternity / From Here to Eternity. Funny Face, Fred Astaire, Audrey Hepburn. Funny Girl. Garden State. Ghost. Gidget, Gidget Goes Hawaiian, Gidget Goes to Rome, Erie 1960s. Gigi. Gone with the Wind. Grease. Great Expectations, Paltrow and Hawk. Groundhog Day. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Harold and Maude. Henry and June. Here on Earth. Hold Ya Man, 1933. Holiday Inn. House Calls. House Sitter. How to Marry a Millionaire. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. How to Marry a Millionaire, 1953. In the Bedroom, 2004, Steve Martin. It Happened One Night. It Could Happen to You. It's a Great Feeling, 1949. It's a Wonderful Life. Jean Harlow. Jerry Maguire. Jezebel. June Bride. Kate and Leopold. Keeping the Faith. Lady and the Tramp. Legends of the Fall. Lonesome Dove. Love in the Afternoon, 1957. Love Story. Love Actually. Love is a Many-Splendored Thing. Love Finds Andy Hardy, Garland and Rooney. Lover Come Back, 1961. Lovers A True Story. Lucky Me, 1954. Lullaby of Broadway, 1951. Made in Manhattan. Marilyn Monroe. Maytime, MacDonald and Eddie. Memoirs of a Geisha. Message in a Bottle. Mickey Blue Eyes. Modern Romance. Moonstruck. Morning Glory, 1933. Morocco. My Fair Lady. My Dream Is Yours, 1949. My Little Chickadee. My Best Friend's Wedding. My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Mystic Pizza. Never Been Kissed. 9 Months. Ninotchka. Notorious. Notting Hill. Now Voyager. Oklahoma. On Golden Pond. One Fine Day. Only You. Out of Africa. Overboard. Peggy Sue Got Married. Personal Property, 1937. Phenomenon. Picture Perfect. Pillow Talk, 1959. Pillow Talk. Platinum Blonde, 1931. Play It Again, Sam. Please Don't Eat the Daisies, 1960. Porgy and Bess. Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman, Gere and Roberts. Prince of Tides. Quaxer Fortune Has a Cousin in the Bronx. Quality Street, 1937. Quiet Wedding. Random Harvest. Reality Bites. Reckless, 1935. Red Dust, 1932. Red Dust, Gable and Harlow. Red-Headed Woman, 1932. Return to Me. Reuben, Reuben. Riff-Raff, 1935. Risky Business. Roman Holiday. Roman Holiday, 1950. Romance on the High Seas, 1948. Romeo and Juliet. Roxanne, 1987. Royal Wedding. Rumor Has It. Runaway Bride. Sabrina, with Julia Ormond and Harrison Ford. Sabrina, 1954. Saratoga, 1937. Saturday Night Fever. Scent of a Woman. Sea of Love. Seems Like Old Times. Send Me No Flowers, 1964. Sense and Sensibility, 1995. Serendipity. Shakespeare in Love. Shall We Dance, 1937. Shallow Hal. She's All That. Shirley Valentine. Silver Streak. Singin' in the Rain. Sleepless in Seattle. Sleepless in Seattle, Ryan and Hanks. Sliding Doors. Something's Gotta Give. Somewhere in Time. Speechless. Spitfire, 1934. Splendor in the Grass. Star Wars. Starting Over. Story of O. Susie, 1936. Sweet Home Alabama. Sweethearts, MacDonald and Eddie. Swing Time, 1936. Swing Time. Sylvia Scarlett, 1936. Tammy and the Bachelor, Tammy and the Doctor. T for Two, 1950. Terms of Endearment. That Touch of Mink. That Touch of Mink, 1962. The Story of Us. The Way We Were. The Unbearable Lightness of Being. The Thrill of It All, 1963. The Tender Trap, 1955. The Story of Vernon and Irene Castle, 1939. The Sound of Music. The Shop Around the Corner. The Chic. The 7-Year Itch, 1955. The Scarlet Empress. The Cutting Edge. The Quiet Man. The Owl and the Pussycat. The Prince and the Showgirl, 1957. The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946. Last Tango in Paris. The Philadelphia Story. The Notebook. The Member of the Wedding. The Mating Game, 1959. The Man in Grey. The Lovers. The Little Minister, 1934. The Lion in Winter. The Last Seduction. The Wedding Planner. The King and I. The In-Laws. The Princess Bride. The Graduate. The Goodbye Girl. The Glass Bottom Boat, 1966. The Girl from Missouri, 1934. The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. The Gay Divorcee, 1934. The Fabulous Baker Boys. The English Patient. The Bride Wasn't Willing. The Big Easy. The Bark-Eelies of Broadway, 1949. The Awful Truth. The American President. The Age of Innocence. The African Queen. The Sure Thing. The Breakup. The Long, Hot Summer, Newman and Woodward. The 40-Year-Old Virgin. The Lake House. The Family Stone. The Thornbirds. The Wedding Singer. The Holiday. The Long Hot Summer. The Bodyguard. The Wedding Date. The Lady Eve. The Truth About Cats and Dogs. The Accidental Tourist. The Runaround. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This Happy Feeling, 1958. Titanic, 1997. Titanic. To Gillian on her 37th birthday. To Have and Have Not, Bogart and Bacall. To Catch a Thief. Tootsie. Top Hat, Astaire and Rogers. Top Gun. Top Hat, 1935. True Love. 2 Weeks Notice. Untamed Heart. Way Down East. Wedding Night. West Side Story. What Now My Love? What Dreams May Come? What Women Want? When Harry Met Sally. While You Were Sleeping. Who Am I This Time? Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Why Do Fools Fall in Love? Wife vs. Secretary, 1936. Witness. Woman of the Year, Hepburn and Tracy. Woman of the Year. Working Girl. Wuthering Heights. You've Got Mail. A list of 150 erotic movies from editorial.rotten-tomatoes.com/guide/erotic-movies-ranked-worst-to-best. 3D Sex and Zen, Extreme Ecstasy, 2011. 372 L.E. Matin, Betty Blue, 37.2 Degrees in the Morning, 1986. A Bigger Splash, 2016. American Gigolo, 1980. Anatomy of Hell, 2004. Angel Heart, 1987. Adam. Tie Me Up. Tie Me Down. 1990. Bakchwi, Thirst, 2009. Basic Instinct 2, 2006. Basic Instinct, 1992. Battle in Heaven, 2006. Belle de Jour, 1968. Bitter Moon, 1992. Blue is the Warmest Color, 2013. Blue Velvet, 1986. Blue Valentine, 2010. Bluebeard, 2010. Boarding Gate, 2008. Body of Evidence, 1992. Body Double, 1984. Body Heat, 1981. Bound, 1996. Bully, 2001. Caligula, 1979. Call Me By Your Name, 2018. Cashback, 2007. Cat People, 1982. Chloe, 2010. Color of Night, 1994. Come Undone, 2000. Crash, 1996. Cruel Intentions, 1999. Cruising, 1980. Damage, 1992. Dancing at the Blue Iguana, 2000. Dangerous Liaisons, 1988. Disclosure, 1994. Double Lover, El Amant Double, 2018. Downloading Nancy, 2008. Dress to Kill, 1980. Els, 2012. Exotica, 1994. Exterminating Angels, 2007. Eyes Wide Shut, 1999. Fatal Attraction, 1987. Fear, 1996. Femme Fatale, 2002. 50 Shades Freed, 2018. 50 Shades of Grey, 2015. 50 Shades Darker, 2017. Final Analysis, 1992. Gouttes d'eau sur pierres. Brûlants, Water Drops on Burning Rocks, 2000. Henry and June, 1990. High Art, 1998. I Am Love, 2010. Il Portiere di Notte, The Night Porter, 1974. In Secret, 2014. In the Cut, 2003. In the Realm of the Senses, 1976. Indecent Proposal, 1993. Intimacy, 2001. Jade, 1995. Jason's Lyric, 1994. Kama Sutra, A Tale of Love, 1996. Killing Me Softly, 2003. Knock Knock, 2015. La Belle Noiseuse, 1991. Last Tango in Paris, 1972. Lila Says, 2005. Live Flesh, Carne Tremula, 1998. Lolita, 1997. Love, 2015. Love and Other Drugs, 2010. Lust, Caution, 2007. Mamir, 2005. Malena, 2000. Mulholland Drive, 2001. Never Talk to Strangers, 1995. Nymphomaniac, Volume I, 2014. Nymphomaniac. Volume 2, 2014. One to Another, 2006. Original Sin, 2001. Passion, 2013. Poison Ivy, 1992. Pola X, 2000. Quills, 2000. Red, White and Blue, 2010. Return to the Blue Lagoon, 1991. Romance, 1999. Romeo is Bleeding, 1993. Sada, 2000. Scarlet Diva, 2000. Sea of Love, 1989. Secretary, 2002. Sex and Lucia, 2002. Sex, Lies, and Videotape, 1989. Shame, 2011. Short Bus, 2006. Showgirls, 1995. Single White Female, 1992. Sirens, 1994. Sleeping Beauty, 2011. Sliver, 1993. Species, 1995. The Canyons, 2013. The Brown Bunny, 2004. The Loft, 2015. The Crush, 1993. The Blue Lagoon, 1980. The Boy Next Door, 2015. The Center of the World, 2001. The Hunger, 1983. The Lover, El Amant, 1992. The Wayward Cloud, 2005. The Dreamers, 2004. The Piano Teacher, La Pianiste, 2001. The Beast, La Bête, 1975. The Hotspot, 1990. The Pillow Book, 1997. The Mother, 2004. The Untamed, La Regent Salvahy, 2017. The Duke of Burgundy, 2015. The Draftsman's Contract, 1982. The Last Seduction, 1994. The Piano, 1993. The Handmaiden, Agassi, 2016. The Cook, The Thief. His Wife and Her Lover, 1989. The Unbearable Lightness of Being, 1988. Threesome, 1994. Trouble Every Day, Gargoyle, 2001. Un Vieille Maîtresse, The Last Mistress, An Old Mistress, 2007. Unfaithful, 2002. Venus in Fur, 2014. Viva, 2007. Warm Water Under a Red Bridge, Akai Hashi no Shita no Onurui Mizu, 2002. Weekend, 2011. When Will I Be Loved, 2004. Where the Truth Lies, 2005. Wild Orchid, 1990. Wild Things, 1998. X, Night of Vengeance, 2011. Y2 Mama También, 2001. Young People Fucking, YPF, 2007. Young and Beautiful, Jean-E.T. Jolie, 2014. Young Adam, 2004. Anti-Love Movies. A Wedding. Betrayal. Fatal Attraction. Chapter 3. A list of love movies by year from 1920 to 1998. 1920. Way Down East. 1921. The Sheik. 1927. Sunrise. 1930. Morocco. 1931. City Lights. 1932. A Farewell to Arms. 1933. King Kong. 1934. It Happened One Night. 1935. Anna Karenina. 1936. Libeled Lady. Swing Time. The Bride Walks Out. 1937. A Star is Born. Camille. Double Wedding. History is Made at Night. Madam X. Stella Dallas. The Awful Truth. Vivacious Lady. 1938. Bringing Up Baby. Four Daughters. Holiday. Jezebel. Rage of Paris. The Shop-Worn Angel. The Divorce of Lady X. 1939. Dark Victory. Gone with the Wind. In Name Only. Intermezzo. Love Affair. Made for Each Other. Ninolchka. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Wuthering Heights. 1940. Kitty Foyle. My Favorite Wife. Primrose Path. The Philadelphia Story. The Shop Around the Corner. 1941. Back Street. Here Comes Mr. Jordan. Love Crazy. Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That Hamilton Woman. The Devil and Miss Jones. The Lady Eve. Tom, Dick, and Harry. 1942. Casablanca. I Married a Witch. Now Voyage. Once Upon a Honeymoon. Random Harvest. That Uncertain Feeling. The Major and the Minor. Woman of the Year. 1943. Heaven Can Wait. 1944. Double Indemnity. To Have and Have Not. 1945. Christmas in Connecticut. Love Letters. I Know Where I'm Going. 1946. Brief Encounter. It's a Wonderful Life. Notorious. Tangler. The Postman Always Rings Twice. 1947. The Bachelor and the Bobby Soxer. The Bishop's Wife. The Egg and I. The Farmer's Daughter. The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. The Perfect Marriage. 1948. Every Girl Should Be Married. One Touch of Venus. Unfaithfully Yours. 1949. On the Town. 1950. Born Yesterday. Father of the Bride. Father's Little Dividend. September Affair. Three Secrets. 1951. An American in Paris. A Place in the Sun. A Streetcar Named Desire. Bedtime for Bonzo. People Will Talk. The African Queen. 1952. Love is Better Than Ever. Monkey Business. Singing in the Rain. The Quiet Man. We're Not Married. 1953. From Here to Eternity. Indiscretion of an American Wife. Roman Holiday. Torch Song. 1954. A Star is Born. It Should Happen to You. Magnificent Obsession. Rhapsody. Sabrina. The Long, Long Trailer. The Last Time I Saw Paris. 1955. All That Heaven Allows. Daddy Long Legs. Lady and the Tramp. Love is a many-splendored thing. Marty. Picnic. Summertime. To Catch a Thief. 1956. The Girl Can't Help It. The King and I. The Opposite Sex. 1957. An Affair to Remember. Designing Woman. Peyton Place. 1958. Another Time, Another Place. Bell, Book, and Candle. Bonjour Tristesse. Gigi. Houseboat. Indiscreet. Marjorie Morningstar. Teacher's Pet. Vertigo. 1959. A Summer Place. Cash McCall. Imitation of Life. Pillow Talk. Porgy and Bess. Some Came Running. 1960. Bells Are Ringing. Let's Make Love. Never on Sunday. The Apartment. The Grass is Greener. Where the Boys Are. 1961. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Paris Blues. Splendor in the Grass. West Side Story. 1962. Boys' Night Out. 40 Pounds of Trouble. Lolita. My Geisha. Period of Adjustment. 2 for the Seesaw. Walk on the Wild Side. 1963. A New Kind of Love. Love with a Proper Stranger. Palm Springs Weekend. The Courtship of Eddie's Father. The Stripper. Man's Favorite Sport. The Wheeler Dealers. 1964. Bedtime Story. Father Goose. Good Neighbor Sam. My Fair Lady. Sex and the Single Girl. 1965. A Swinging Summer. Dr. Zhivago. How to Murder Your Wife. The Sound of Music. What's New Pussycat? 1966. Alfie. Any Wednesday. Georgie Girl. The Trouble with Angels. Walk Don't Run. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? 1967. A Guide for the Married Man. Barefoot in the Park. Bonnie and Clyde. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? The Graduate. 2 for the Road. 1968. Buona Sera, Mrs. Campbell. Funny Girl. Petulia. The Impossible Years. 3 in the Attic. Where Were You When the Lights Went Out? 1969. Cactus Flower. Goodbye Columbus. 1970. Lovers and Other Strangers. Love Story. There's a Girl in My Soup. 1971. A New Leaf. Carnal Knowledge. Harold and Maude. 1972. A Touch of Class. Last of the Red Hot Lovers. Last Tango in Paris. The Heartbreak Kid. What's Up Doc? 1973. American Graffiti. Bloom in Love. 40 Carats. The Way We Were. 1977. Annie Hall. First Love. Same Time Next Year. The Goodbye Girl. You Light Up My Life. 1978. Coming Home. Grease. Heaven Can Wait. An Unmarried Woman. House Calls. 1979. Lost and Found. Manhattan. Starting Over. Time After Time. 1980. Loving Couples. Somewhere in Time. The Competition. Urban Cowboy. 1981. Arthur. Body Heat. Continental Divide. Modern Romance. On Golden Pond. Reds. The Four Seasons. 1982. An Officer and a Gentleman. Best Friends. Butterfly. Personal Best. 1983. Lovesick. Love Letters. The Man Who Loved Women. 1984. Falling in Love. Mickey and Maude. Splash. The Buddy System. The Woman in Red. Unfaithfully Yours. Until September 1985. Creator. Murphy's Romance. Out of Africa. Witness. 1986. Every Time We Say Goodbye. Heartburn. Peggy Sue Got Married. Violets Are Blue. 1987. Always. A Man in Love. Dirty Dancing. In the Mood. Made in Heaven. Making Mr. Right. Moonstruck. Overboard. Roxanne. Surrender. The Princess Bride. 1988. A New Life. Crossing Delancey. The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Working Girl. 1989. Cousins. When Harry Met Sally. True Love. 1990. Betsy's Wedding. Funny About Love. Ghost. Green Card. May Wine. Pretty Woman. Stanley and Iris. Strapless. The Tall Guy. White Palace. 1991. Beauty and the Beast. Body Heat. Father of the Bride. Frankie and Johnny. He Said, She Said. The Butcher's Wife. Prince of Tides. Once Around. Only the Lonely. 1992. Forever Young. House Sitter. Man Trouble. L.A. Story. Prelude to a Kiss. The Bodyguard. The Lover. 1993. A Fine Romance. Indecent Proposal. Made in America. Map of the Human Heart. Mr. Wonderful. The Night We Never Met. Shadowlands. Sleepless in Seattle. 1994. Four Weddings and a Funeral. IQ. Love Affair. Only You. Sirens. Speechless. The Last Seduction. 1995. Don Juan DeMarco. Forget Paris. French Kiss. Miami Rhapsody. Rob Roy. Sense and Sensibility. The Bridges of Madison County. The American President. While You Were Sleeping. 1996. Jerry Maguire. The English Patient. William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. 1997. Titanic. 1998. Shakespeare in Love. What Dreams May Come. Chapter 4. A Romantic Comedy Movie TV Show Guide. MovieBB.net for free movies. I watched all the old TV series I used to watch as a kid. They have classic movies from the 1940s. A list of romcom websites at blog.feedspot.com/romcom_blogs. Authorsbillboard.com/tag/romantic-comedy. briansbookblog.com/reviews/genres/romcom. curledupwithheygoodbook.co.uk/tag/rom-com. deliciouslyromanticbooks.com/tag/romcom. feedspot.com/media-contact-database?@_src=@_blog. icecreambookblog.com/romantic-comedy. lucymichelauthor.blog/tag/romcom. marice.net/tag/comedy-romance. natashaissabookjunkie.com/category/romantic-comedy. newjerseykinniesblog.com/tag/romantic-comedy. readingtonic.home.blog/category/romance/romcom. risirights.com/tag/romantic-comedy. romcomfest.com/blog. teresaea.com/category/writing/rom-com. A list of romantic comedy podcasts at blog.feedspot.com/romantic_comedy_podcasts. anchor.fm/anu-gday-oho. anchor.fm/romcom rewind podcast. Anchor.fm/agarc. Anchor.fm/romcomweekly. Anchor.fm/rom-com-dudes. Anchor.fm/2prickstalk80sflix. Audioboom.com/channel/ps-i-hate-this-movie. Buzzsprout.com/394417. juliacunningham.libzn.com/website. mybigfatromcompod.buzzsprout.com. player.wooshkaya.com/shows/one-kiss-means-forever. ratetheromcom.com/listen. romcomathon.podbean.com. romcomcom.com. romcomedians.libzn.com. romcomeffect.buzzsprout.com. romcomkilljoys.buzzsprout.com. romcomlove.libzn.com/website. romcompods.com. soundcloud.com/romancesdeadpodcast. talkfilmsociety.com/podcasts ? Category =it +pod +2 +u. 10donproductions.com/hrfh. we're campfire.media/podcast/ps I love romcoms. whankearimtali.podbean.com. A list of romantic comedy movies at imdb.com/list/ls0000430052. 10 Things I Hate About You, 1999. 27 Dresses, 2008. 40 Days and 40 Nights, 2002. A Guy Thing, 2003. All Over the Guy, 2001. Anything Else, 2003. Because I Said So, 2007. Blind Date, 1987. Boat Trip, 2002. Chasing Liberty, 2004. Clueless, 1995. Confessions of a Shopaholic, 2009. Crush, 2001. Definitely. Maybe, 2008. Drive Me Crazy, 1999. Easy A, 2010. First Daughter, 2004. Fool's Gold, 2008. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, 2008. Get Over It, 2001. Going the Distance, 2010. He's Just Not That Into You, 2009. Head Over Heels, 2001. Hitch, 2005. How Do You Know, 2010. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, 2003. Imagine Me and You, 2005. Just Go With It, 2011. Just Right, 2010. Just Friends, 2005. Just My Luck, 2006. Just Married, 2003. Knocked Up, 2007. Laws of Attraction, 2004. Leap Year, 2010. License to Wed, 2007. Life or Something Like It, 2002. Life as We Know It, 2010. Little Manhattan, 2005. Little Black Book, 2004. Love Don't Cost a Thing, 2003. Made in Manhattan, 2002. Music and Lyrics, 2007. My Best Friend's Girl, 2008. My Life in Ruins, 2009. Never Been Kissed, 1999. Never Again, 2001. No Reservations, 2007. No Strings Attached, 2011. On the Line, 2001. Only You, 1994. Our Family Wedding, 2010. Picture Perfect, 1997. Pretty Woman, 1990. Pretty in Pink, 1986. Reality Bites, 1994. Rumor Has It. Say Anything, 1989. Serendipity, 2001. Serving Sarah, 2002. Sex and the City 2, 2010. Sex and the City, 2008. Shallow Hal, 2001. She's Out of My League, 2010. She's All That, 1999. 6 Days 7 Nights, 1998. Someone Like You, 2001. Something New, 2006. Summer Catch, 2001. Sweet Home Alabama, 2002. That Old Feeling, 1997. The Proposal, 2009. The Perfect Man, 2005. The Prince and Me, 2004. The Heartbreak Kid, 2007. The Breakup, 2006. The Wedding Date, 2005. The Wedding Planner, 2001. The Bounty Hunter, 2010. The Romantics, 2010. The Backup Plan, 2010. The Wedding Singer, 1998. The Last Kiss, 2006. There's Something About Mary, 1998. Two Can Play That Game, 2001. Valentine's Day, 2010. A list of romantic comedy TV series at buzzfeed.com/jenna-romantic-comedy-tv-series. Awkward. Chewing Gum. Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Fleabag. Gavin and Stacey. High Fidelity. Jane the Virgin. Love Life. Love. Love, Victor. Lovesick. Never Have I Ever. New Girl. Romance is a Bonus Book. Selfie. The Mindy Project. The Baker and the Beauty. What's Wrong with Secretary Kim? Younger.